Hello and welcome to the channel. Whether it's your first or your 50th scientific paper, it all starts with an outline. We all know the parts of a scientific paper: abstract, introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. Now, this is the order we read papers, but it's not the order in which we should write our papers. When you write, you should actually start with the materials and methods, then results, then discussion and conclusion, then introduction, and finally your abstract. We start with the methods not only because it's the most straightforward, because it's the only one you can do during your data collection phase. To outline the methods, simply list the experiments that you've done, and then fill in any relevant details about how you did the experiment. Basically, what would the reader need to know in order to replicate what you've done? Moving on to the results, simply copy and paste your list of experiments, and then fill in what your results were. At this point, start thinking about how your results would be best presented. Would a table or figure be a good way to present these results? What type of figure or table would be most appropriate? So that's how you do your methods and results in an ideal situation, when you have all your lab notes neatly organized and laid out in front of you. But let's be real, you're probably scribbling this down while you wait for your samples to be done in the centrifuge. That's fine, just read it over when you're done and make sure that the order of experiments you presented in the method section match the order of the experiments you present in your results section. In the discussion, your sections will be strengths of the project, major findings, minor findings, novelty of the project and how it fits into literature, limitations of the project and how this could be addressed in the future. Review your results and fill in some bullet points for each of these sections. For the conclusion, you'll want to reiterate the main findings in your discussion. Reinforce the novelty and how it contributes to the body of knowledge in your field, and then state future directions for this work. Remember, the discussion and conclusion are generally the last thing the reader will read, so this is your chance to really drive home why your research is so cool. If you're publishing, it means you've discovered something new. Brag about it a little bit. Get people excited for your future projects. And a quick disclaimer, discussion and conclusion can vary quite a bit from field to field, even journal to journal. I've tried to generalize it as much as possible to be useful to everyone, but depending on your specific area of research, you might want to change the order or even add a couple of sections to your template. If your field is different and you have ideas on how to adapt this template to suit your needs, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Also, if you are submitting to a journal that doesn't ask for a conclusion, just make these guys as brief as possible and then stick the whole thing onto the end of the discussion. Now that we've finished the second half of our paper, it's time to go back and outline the introduction. Have a look at what you've written so far and ask yourself, what would my audience need to know in order to understand what I've written here? Specifically, what would they need to know in order to understand the discussion and the conclusion? Identify the 2 or 3 topics in your paper, fill in as much detail as you need, and then add one last section where you tie it all together and introduce your research. For me, the topics might be lung cancer and microRNA biomarkers. And then I would introduce my project where I look for microRNA biomarkers in lung cancer. It kind of writes itself at this point. And that pretty much wraps up your outline. I tend to leave the abstract until after I've written at least the first draft. The abstract is an overview of your paper, and it's pretty difficult to make an overview of an outline. So there you have it. This is the outline of your scientific paper. Give it one more read and make sure all the information is there in a clear, logical, and understandable order. From here, you can add more and more details, and eventually those bullet points become sentences, and with a few connecting words, you can turn those sentences into paragraphs. Or if you prefer, you can use this outline as a guide while you write your first draft in a new document. Whatever works best for you in your writing style. Thank you so much for watching. If you thought this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. This was my first long form video in my On Writing series. If you want to see more writing tips or skills for university and grad school, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.